So, our talk this morning is just when you thought you got your miracle. So, back to our book that we used throughout the past couple of months, Shortcut to a Miracle by Michael Rand and Elizabeth Rand Arrett. They define miracle as a miracle is a wonderful, often extraordinary event or occurrence happening through natural and normal, but frequently unexpected and unlikely circumstances. So I want to remind you of that definition of a miracle, because this is key to what this talk is about today. A miracle to us, to each one of us, is something that we think is out of our ordinary. In other words, we're not expecting it necessarily when we begin praying and affirming and working toward a miracle. If something wonderful happens in your life today that you expected, or that happens every Sunday, like maybe you walk along the path, the canal towpath perhaps, and you see a cute little turtle sunning itself on the log. It's actually so beautiful, but actually within your realm of common experience. And so you don't think anything special about it. In other words, it's normal to you. Reverend Lloyd Strom and Reverend Marcia Sutton talk about our sphere of availability. And so every one of us has an unconscious acceptance of what is available to us, what's normal to us, how much good can come to us. And so a miracle is, by definition, something outside of what we think is available to us. And that's what we have to realize, that when the miracle finally happens, even though we've done a whole lot of inner preparation and talking about it and yada, 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 the miracle has only just begun. In other words, now our real work begins. I call this phase, after that miracle starts demonstrating, all hell breaks loose. And it's because of this. As we were in our sphere of availability and considered our lives normal and natural, we saw some good that our heart desires, or we just felt that desire within us. That desire is of the Father, given to us by the divine. But what we want to realize is the whole reason why we are given this desire and we start praying, and why miracles demonstrate, is it is all orchestrated by the divine, because the divine creator wants us to grow. And so that first phase of our growth is all internal. We think about it, we talk about it, we visualize it or vision it, and we imagine how wonderful it's going to be. We do our spiritual work so that we're ready for it. We accept it and accept it and accept it. And then it manifests. But it doesn't mean we're done. It means that we have now begun the work that's necessary to really change us, to have what we thought originally of as a miracle becoming natural and normal to us. And so up until that point of the miracle showing up in our world, we changed and we did all the work that we could imagine, that we were guided to do. But we have to realize that when that miracle finally demonstrates, we have no clue how to really behave, what's really required of us. And so we have to learn very quickly how to be equal to our miracle. You know, when you get a wonderful job and you're very, very nervous the very first day, well, those nervous jitters are all signs telling us we've got a lot to learn. We've got to pay attention. We've got to listen. We've got to be on our game, practicing and learning and picking up all the signs and the symbols that tell us that we're doing something wrong. We need to learn about it. We need to become in our physical expression in our speech and in our behaviors and in our attitudes and in our energy and maybe even in our clothing attire. We have to become the full embodiment of that miracle so that it no longer seems like a miracle to us. It seems natural and normal. It seems like a piece of cake. When we reach that phase, I call it flying. We're just soaring along. But until then, we ain't there yet. And so we need to realize it. One of the things I came across this book called The 12 Conditions of a Miracle, written by Todd Michael. And he shares a personal story in here about him manifesting a miracle. And so what he says is this: when I moved to the mountains years ago, I located nearly a dozen emergency rooms that offered employment. The first one that was offered, however, it seemed unsuitable to him and he rejected it. In spite of the fact that the recruiter in charge of this particular facility pressed him repeatedly to consider it. And what he shares with us is that the real reason why he rejected that hospital had nothing to do with the hospital. He just didn't like the recruiter's manner on the phone. And so he took that as his guidance and went to work at a different emergency room. And what he shares is this: the results were extremely painful. The opportunity I had chosen was far from optimal. I quickly found that working conditions at this facility were brutal. The hours were long, the duties involved were stressful beyond description. My coworkers were abrasive and difficult. After a year and a half of exhausting work, I was finally persuaded one day to cover a single shift at that first ER that had been offered. The regular doctor had fallen ill, and the promise of double wages lured me grudgingly to accept just this once, I grumbled. Within an hour of arriving, he discovered, sheepishly, that this was by far the best ER he had ever worked in. Working conditions were infinitely superior. Doctors and nurses were friendly and easygoing. Equipment and backup was superb. Even the pay was better. Within a week, he took the job, and he worked there for several years. He says, in retrospect, I just wasn't paying attention. And so this is the thing. When our miracles start showing up, we have to pay attention. We really have to listen as if we are clueless. Our errors are, when we're moving into our miracle, come from thinking we know all that there is to know. And we don't. And we don't have to. When I work with people who are doing their spiritual work for a miracle, and they're like, when will it happen? When will it happen? When will it happen? I like to say that the miracle will emerge when no more inner growth can happen. No more growth in you can happen unless the miracle is there in front of you, forcing you now to learn what you could not imagine. And so I call it all hell breaks loose, because now the outer world is shouting at us from every direction and showing us in every direction we don't know all that we need to know. We might think, okay, maybe we know half from all that internal preparation and spiritual work that we did, but now it really begins. Dr. Robert Bitzer told a story of an actor who really wanted this role, and he got the part. And then he discovered he was unable to learn the lines. Well, that's a major part. That's part of the repertoire of being an actor. You have to be able to memorize your lines. Otherwise, hello. So he was frantic because he couldn't memorize his lines. And so he went back and got some spiritual work and got to work learning how to memorize lines so that he could do the best job in that acting role that he had been given. And he did. Years ago, I was praying to have new expression that used my highest talents and abilities. And so when an opportunity was given to me, offered to me at lunch to be hired as a professional opera chorister, I was honest with the woman who was making me the offer. I said, I hate opera. I don't know Italian. I've never sung it before. I know nothing about Tosca. But if you want to hire me, okay. And she did. I was listening. I hated opera. But this offer came out of the blue, irrational, crazy. However, I remember in my musical theater days that the directors often would complain about my operatic-y voice. So I had the voice, I had the operatic training to sing at that level, but I just had never done it because I didn't like it. And also, I didn't like it. That's why. Well, I accepted the job, but oh, it just began. I had to do spiritual work every single day. Spirit, lead me, guide me. I had a full-time job doing something else that occupied all those working hours. And so I didn't have all the time that I could to understand what I was singing and to understand where my voice fit in with all the orchestra and the other singers. It was immense, but infinite mind that had brought me this far, and you, as far as your miracle, will take us the rest of the way, but we must listen and do what we are guided to do. It is time to be willing to change, and obedient. Obedient. Well, I worked my little, tushy off, and I learned enough to sing in that particular chorus production, and I was hired for another one, and I learned enough for that one. And eventually I took some Italian classes so I could understand what syllables put together became a word and how to pronounce them. And I had a wonderful time being a professional chorister. And then again, after a few years of that, the conductor that I was working with asked me to take on a small solo role as an opera person. And I knew at the first offer that I wasn't ready and that I needed more time to prepare. And so that came to me, and I had to work. And as I worked and worked and worked and worked and worked to do this teeny weeny little solo role in an opera, when I actually performed it, the conductor took me aside and he said, I know the mistake you are making. You come from musical theater. I can fix this. Would you like to work with me? And so I began training with that particular maestro, and then got, several other opera roles. I mean, what the heck? It was amazing. It was a miracle from beginning to end. And I had to do the work. We have to, when we get that miracle, we need to realize that it has only just begun. The changes that are necessary for us may be ones we don't want to change, but they are necessary. And if you continue walking hand in hand with that divinity within you and listen to its guidance, and not your, as Todd Michael said, he believes it was his ego telling him, no, I don't like her attitude on the phone. I'm not going to, she was pushy. I don't like that. Instead of that ego voice that he listened to, we need to realize it is our ego voice, and listen to that inner guidance that's saying, yeah, go, take it. It's tricky stuff. Prior to that miracle, what we want to realize is, as we're doing all that work, we are, as far as a human being is concerned, under control. Nothing's happened really on the outer yet. And so as long as it's still in our own mind and in our own little world, we've got control. And oftentimes very few other people get into the act. And if they do get into the act and we don't like it, we can push them back out again. But when that good that we are praying for starts taking form in the physical world, other people are involved. And we lose that control that we were so comfortable before. We were within our sphere of availability and edging out right to that edge and doing all our spiritual work. But when that miracle manifests, we are thrown into a whole new experience with people having an opinion and having a say. And we might feel ourselves going up and down emotionally, whether, oh yeah, things went good, we think we did a good job, and up another realization that we don't have a clue, that there's another vital part missing. But we want to realize that we are being, I don't know if the word is tempered, but we are being molded and shaped to be an inner as well as an outer manifestation of the embodiment of the full and complete miracle. So as we continue to grow in all the changes that are required, we reach that step of mastery, that we know what we know. And we know that all that we didn't know, we now know. And we can now be a teacher. We can now share our wisdom with other people. Back before the miracle happens, or maybe when the miracle first happens, we think we know it all. When I was working with what is now the Centers for Spiritual Living, and we were working together to integrate our two different organizations, I remember our soon-to-be spiritual leader, Dr. Ken Gordon, saying the biggest fear he had as we were entering into the process of working it all out was what we don't know that we don't know. And so that's what we want to realize as we move forward from good to greater good. It is all the call of the divine asking us to become more, to be a greater vehicle for expressing its greatness and its wisdom and its love and its joy and its harmony. And it is the divine that gives each one of us the talents and the abilities that we have. But it is up to us to grow into these talents and abilities so that we can express them better and better. And that we are never done in our growing, but we may from time to time achieve those masteries over certain levels of consciousness where we are a success and we know what we're doing and we enjoy it and we love it and we're still growing, but we're onto it. We change and we adapt quickly and easily. We're not embarrassed if someone says, like my conductor calling me aside saying, "You don't know the mistake that you're making, but I do, and I know how to fix it, and I will help you fix it if you want me to." All I had to do was say yes and, swallow my embarrassment that I didn't do as fabulous a job as I thought I did and learn. And as a result, I got better and better and better. And more roles and more money. I mean, it was really a delightful time for me. And so miracles are wonderful from beginning to end when we realize at the start of that, from that point of that very first call of that miracle, it is the divinity within us calling us to change. It's saying, "You've outgrown the good that I have given you so far. And now you need to grow and expand in all the divine qualities so that more good can be given." I know when I first came into this teaching, believing, oh, all I had to do is just have Dr. Stuart Grayson do the treatment and next day I'd wake up and my whole life would be different. And I remember Raymond Charles Barker used to say that he would look out at the audience on Sunday mornings. He used to meet at Alice Tully Hall, and he would look at the audience and be thinking, everybody should be looking different. But if the same people were coming each week for years, wearing the same clothes and sitting in the same spot and looking the same way, he realizes they were not allowing themselves to change as the divinity within them was calling them to change. Yes, we are going to look different and act different, and our interests are going to change, and even our taste buds can change. Everything about us can change as we grow into greater good. And so that which we had thought we wouldn't like, we discover is the key to our greatest joy. I don't think I got a chance. I know there was one talk that I did recently where I wanted to say, watch your nevers and your always, as in, I always blah, blah, blah. I never will blah, blah, blah. You want to watch them because those verdicts that we place on ourselves get in our way when the divine is calling us to grow. And so I have learned every single one of my nevers that I have said, I have been proven wrong. I never wanted to sing opera. Wrong. I never wanted to know about the history of China. Wrong. I never wanted to do this. I don't even say that anymore. I say, as far as I know, so far, that does not interest me. But there's a part of me that goes, who knows who I will become, what I will be like, what is available for me, and how I will change my whole attitude when I start listening to that divinity within as it grows me and you. So we want to be careful that we listen, because the miracle frequently or usually, well, or maybe all the time, it's not going to look or come in the way that we thought. It might not even feel at the beginning the way that it ought to feel when we get a miracle. And the other important point that I want to make about the necessity when you get your miracle for making all the changes that go with it is, if we don't, the miracle goes away. I knew this one young man. I met him in this teaching, and he was really good at demanding his good now. And he told me he really focused on now. And upon reflection, I believe he was using more willpower in demonstrating his good than uniting with that divine will of goodness. But what do I know? But what I did observe was this. At one point, he decided that he wanted to direct a movie, or no, he wanted to write a movie script. Thank you. Screen script. Okay. In Italy. He wanted to do a movie in Italy, and he wanted to write the screenplay for it. Then he did a very powerful spiritual mind treatment affirmative prayer now. The next Sunday, he went to Alice Tully Hall, and an older woman who was sitting there was looking at him and looking at him. And after the service, she went up to him and she invited him to brunch, which he did. He went to it. And she said that she was a producer. And she asked about him and his desire. And he said to her, well, I really would love to create a movie in Italy. And she's like, that's exactly what I'm looking for. Send me examples of your work, your writing. And he never did, because he had never written anything. And I, being a good friend of his, I was all excited, and I had been a writer, and I was pretty good at writing, and I offered to help him. I will help you write that script. I will help you do that. Let's do it. This is so exciting. And he just kept delaying, and then he complained about a month later that the woman was avoiding him and not looking at him. And I'm like, well, hello, you have this opportunity. Your miracle came. but you needed to cooperate. You needed to write the script. You needed to send her something, anything. At least start. Who knows how far it could have gone? But it went away because, and I mean, this is just my opinion in retrospect, but it seemed pretty obvious. He was unwilling to change, to complete that growth that was started with his very powerful affirmative prayer. So that's why this is important. So this now gives us a whole new point of view in actually even choosing what miracle we want to do spiritual work for. Because when we select the greater good to fulfill our heart desire, we now understand that we have to take all that goes with it. And that includes all the change in us, even having to change in ways we don't want to when we began. But as we do accept those changes, when they come in perfect right order and divine right timing, but we got to stay there. We got to ride our emotional ups and downs, and we have to keep swallowing our pride and listening and staying connected to spirit and making mistakes and learning from the mistakes and growing from the mistakes and changing in every human way that also is necessary to match all the spiritual changes that we've done inside. When we are willing to take all that, then we become that full embodied of the miracle. So when we are selecting a miracle at the beginning, realizing all that's going to happen. I mean, there's baby miracles, but there's a real big miracle is something that's way outside of our sphere of availability. That's worth it. It's going to take a while because there's a lot for us to learn. It's not that the miracle is going to take so much time. It's because we have so much changing to do. But, that is worth it. But, it's not for the faint of heart. It's not for the I give up. It's not working out my way. It's not for I'm going to keep my attitude. It's for the humble. It's for the one who is willing to surrender. It's the one who is willing to say, I am flexible. I am willing to change. And the one who is willing to seek out help with others. Tell me what I'm doing wrong. Let me know what I need to know. And doing whatever it takes because you've got that spiritual trust built up in you, that you are willing to do what is necessary. And it is a thrill to grow this way. And it's worth it. And you're only moving from good to greater good. And the only thing that's standing in the way for your full enjoyment of your miracle is your own self. And so with a good-natured humor, we accept our growth and we learn all that is for us to learn as we take these steps. I want to make sure I got all my points in. Yes. So my final point is this. Let's say some of you have been working with a miracle. And if you haven't, well, pick a baby one now or a big one now. But there is an affirmative prayer, a spiritual mind treatment that I highly recommend that you do when that miracle starts demonstrating, and you do it every single day. Why do you do it every single day? Because without it, you don't have the guts to face that day. In a really big miracle with all that change that you have to do, from personal experience, I am telling you, you hang on, you grab a hold of God and you hang on for the whole roller coaster ride. And the prayer that works goes something like this. Infinite mind. So infinite mind exists. It's the mind that created the universe, and it's the mind that created all of humanity and everything human beings are doing. It's the mind that created you and me. And it's the mind that knows everything about you and everything about the consciousness of the full embodiment of the miracle as you and me. And it knows how to get you and me from where we are to where we want to go. It knows every detail. It knows how to get you to say yes to a job that doesn't sound right to you. It knows how to tell you to say no when it's no. It's divine wisdom, which Susan Neat spoke about in her video, which you can look at. If you haven't done it already, it's already posted on our Facebook page. But that infinite mind, infinitely intelligent, knows everything. And so my affirmative prayer, it goes something like this. Infinite mind knows all. It knows everything about me. And it knows my higher and greater good. And it knows this good that I am moving into. And it knows how to change me to fully accept and embody a full consciousness equal to this tremendous good. And so I am guided, and I listen and obey. And I do what I am divinely guided to do each and every moment, knowing that my greater good is assured and that I am moving forward in ways and means of goodness. I am a successful playwright, whatever. And I am grateful it is done, and so it is. That's it. That's what I did with the opera singing. That's what I did when I was hired to be a paralegal negotiating leases for a clothing chain. I hadn't a clue. It's these impossible miracles that you have to throw yourself on the divine intelligence. And every single day in these tremendous demonstrations that happened for me, I had to say, divine mind, I have no clue, but infinite mind knows. Guide me. I will obey. And so you do that spiritual mind treatment, that affirmative prayer every day, and then as best you can, because again, that divine mind knows you and all your quirks, right? But as best you can, you listen to its guidance and you follow it as best you can. Obedience. I used to hate that word. Now I find being obedient to that inner wisdom is the key to a life of harmony and peace. All right, enough said. So I invite you now to take a moment, and I'm going to do a real spiritual mind treatment for each and every one of us. So I invite you to think of your greater good. I'm going to call our miracles our greater good in this prayer that I'm about to do. So pick something and get ready for the ride. Here we go. This word is being spoken for each one. Infinite mind knows all, knows everything about each one, because this infinite mind is the divine creator and is creating each one. It knows everything about each one, and it knows everything that is in each one's heart. It knows what is in the heart, because this infinite mind is also a loving presence that placed its love, its desire in that heart. And so each one accepts and acknowledges that desire for greater good that has been placed in the heart, and realizes that this is a call from the divine to grow, to change, to become more of the divine qualities of God. These divine qualities of love, joy, harmony, peace, order, beauty, of a greater expression of life, health, vitality, abundance, a greater manifestation of success and effective, productive activity. And so this call to being more of an avenue for the divine to bring its gifts through them into the world is the call. Each one has said yes to it. And so all systems are go. Each one is now allowing that loving intelligence to guide him or her step by step in the full and complete manifestation of this greater good and the full embodiment on the inner as well as the outer. And each and every moment, each one is guided clearly, wisely, and lovingly. And each one is able to follow that guidance with faith and with trust. And every step taken is harmonious, happy, and perfect right order and divine right action. And whatever anyone needs to learn, this infinite intelligence teaches. It is learned. And whatever needs to be known, it is known. And whatever needs to be changed, it is changed. Each one is in inner as well as outer agreement into becoming this greater good that is present within each one now as a desire. And so all systems are go. The law is fully and completely authorized to do what the law knows how to do, to bring to each one now a complete and full embodiment of this greater good. This greater good is now in the mind of the divine, natural and normal, easy and joyfully expressing in, through, and as each one. And I am glad that this is the truth and grateful that each one has said yes to it. And so I release this word now to the law, knowing the law knows what to do and does it well, and it is completely done, and so it is. And that's the way it is. And this, as Dr. Tom Johnson used to say, is just the beginning. Talk to you again at another time. Thanks for watching.